what other people go through, that they're not alone, that things could be worse for them, they could get better. I mean, that's so exactly what you said is the exact reason why sharing that story is absolutely important, because people can learn from it. People can get over their own things that they're facing because they know that someone else did it. I mean, how powerful is it? You know, you hear the story all the time about the first guy, Bannister broke the 4-mile time, or the 4-minute mile. No one thought it was possible. Once he did it, all kinds of people did it. So just knowing that someone like you can go from this horrible place and do what you've done, yeah, that's huge. Did these events, as they unfolded, impact your decision to join the Navy? And at what point did you go down to the recruiter and sign up?
So when my father died, it was a few months before graduating high school, and I was already depped in. I had a ship date, so I had already gone and signed the paperwork. I mean, not the final dotted line that makes you in the Navy, and you raise your right hand and do the enlisted oath. But my mind was set. I mean, my mind was set a week after Keith Blum told me what a Navy SEAL was back when I was 16. I mean, it was clear, like, I'm going to do this, and no one is going to be able to convince me otherwise. And I talked to people, and people ask me too, like, I think I want to be a SEAL. And I don't know if this is a litmus test, but I always try and convince people to not do it. And I feel like if I can convince someone to not do it, I just perhaps have saved them and the money a lot of time and money. Because if I can convince you to not be a SEAL, then you probably will convince yourself at the first sign of suffering. So, but I was not convincible. You could not convince me to do anything. And the conversation, this is crazy. I'm pulling up memories I have not thought of in years. Just the conversations I had crafted that I was planning to tell my father, because I could not tell my father I was joining the Navy. No way. He would have, he may have quite literally killed me. I think that would have been very upsetting to him, because he had a clear path for me, and it was to be a doctor at Harvard Medical School. And I promise you that is not why I went to Harvard Medical School. But it was to do that. And for me, I was like, there's no way I'm going to do that. I am not going to live your dream. I don't want to be a doctor. I don't want to go to an Ivy League school. I want to be in the trenches. I want to enlist. I want to be the E1, working my way up, learning from everyone else, learning the ropes, and roughing it. Being in the trenches with the boys. That's all I wanted to do. And I crafted how I would tell my father I was actually going to join the academy. And I was thinking, I had this plan to go to the exchange and like buy an officer's uniform. So when I would come home, I would like show up in an officer's uniform just to like maintain this perception to my father that I was in the academy. And these were like the ropes, the extent that I had planned, because I was so afraid to tell my father. And fortunately, I didn't have to do any of that because my father died. It sounds callous, but fortunately, I did not have to go through that deceit because my father passed away. And I don't mean to paint my father in a bad light, really. I love my father. I do. I could not have said that. I was unable to say those words for a very long time. But I do love my father, and I understand he was human and fell to sin and his demons. He just didn't have the clarity and the tools to deal with that, and I forgive him for that. So I don't mean to paint my father in a bad light. And as I said before, I would not trade those experiences for anything because they were formative, and everything I am today started with that darkness.
When you were talking about going into going into the recruiter and all that, and I'm imagining when I did it, I remember being, because you were talking about feeling liberated before when your dad died. I know that when I joined the Navy, man, I felt like so awesome. Like, I felt like I didn't need anybody else. I was 100%, like, no one had any control over me anymore. I just kind of, at that moment when I signed that dotted line, I now was in control of my fate, even though most people would look at the opposite. Oh, you're in the Navy now and you're going to have to follow orders and wear uniforms and all this stuff. To me, it was complete and utter freedom. That's what it felt like.
Yeah.
Now, so you graduate high school. So did you graduate, you're 18 years old or you're 17 years old?
I was 18 when I graduated high school.
And you go to Navy boot camp.
Yep.
How was that?
I'm still in the Navy. I'm an active duty lieutenant, so I will maintain my level of respect and deference to the ways of the Navy. But Navy boot camp is just wasn't as trying as I thought it would. I think when you have the idea that you're going to be a SEAL, you prepare yourself for a different standard. So when you go to boot camp, you show up, it's just a little different.
Yeah. Well, the focus is on like attention to detail. It's more of a pain, the way I look at it. More of a pain. Like you're like, oh, this is a pain because you have to make your bed and you have to fold your underwear a certain way. And you have to do all these things that more than their physical pain, they're just a pain, just a pain.
There's a rhyme and reason for why they do things, and I think it works.
For sure.
You know what? I chuckle and I smile when I think about Navy boot camp because that's where it all started. I mean, I loved it. Like you said, you felt free. I felt free. I felt I had no one. Like, when my dad died, I just felt this weight on my shoulders, just released, like I had never felt before. And for the first time, I didn't have to worry about my brother or my mother. So, and I just wanted to get away. The teams, the military, it was my ticket to escape the childhood I was born into. This idea of Jonathan that people had knew as a scared little boy. I needed a reset button, and the military was my reset button. Now I'm going to start anew with people I don't know, who have no idea where I came from, of my background, and I am going to go through the ranks on my own merit and hard work and learn how to be led and lead others. And it was the best decision I've ever made. And every time I say that, I think of my wife, because I think marrying my wife was the best decision I made. But it's a little different. You understand what I mean by it was the best decision for me in my growth and development to join the military. And it's not like that for everyone. I'm not trying to sound like a recruiter. Yeah. Join the military. It's not for everyone, but it was for me.
I would tell you that, this is true for my wife for sure. If I didn't join the Navy, if I didn't go in the teams, my wife, probably wouldn't have married me because I wouldn't have been the human that I am. And to this day, if like the reason that we're happily married is rooted in the fact that I was in the Dames. Whether she likes it or not, she knows it's true. Like you have that always, and it's always it always is a part of you. So, it sounded like you were pretty well prepared for buds in terms of you played water polo, you were a good swimmer, you were working out on the beach in Santa Monica. It sounds like physically you were pretty good to go.
I would say in most aspects, I think I put an over-reliance on calisthenics and body weight exercises. I mean, I could crush the PS, whatever they're calling it now, the PST, the timed run and swim and pull-ups and all that stuff. I could crush that. But you put weight on me, you put a log on me, you put a boat on me. Mm-hmm.
How much did you weigh going to buds?
I was 45 pounds. I'm 180. I think 185 now. I'm a lot stronger now than I was back then. But I'm also a lot slower. Like I probably couldn't run as fast as back then. But I didn't understand strength the way I do now. Like I didn't incorporate barbells into my routine. It was all body weight stuff. So it was definitely an over-reliance on the body weight exercises, calisthenics, running, swimming. And if I could redo it, I would have eaten a lot more calories.
During buds or before buds?
Before buds.
Just to be bigger and stronger.
Just to be bigger and stronger, and I would have squatted.
And warmer. And
I would have squatted a lot. And just the same, shoulder presses, bench press, squatting, deadlifts. I did none of that before preparing for buds. And so I feel I was prepared, but I wasn't prepared in that respect.
Then was there anything that gave you like real problems in buds? Like did you make it through one class? Did you get rolled back at all?
No, I was lucky enough to make it through with 247 in one shot. You
started with 247 and then you graduated with 247. Did you fail anything?
No.
Oh, because you were comfortable in the water from water polo.
So you
for real
for dive phase?
Yeah,
I thought dive phase was great. I was very comfortable being thrown around in the water because you're right. I mean, just from playing water polo, you're used to being like people are trying to drown you, getting the ball. So being thrashed around in pool comp wasn't a big deal. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone is capable. The water, you are your own greatest enemy in the water, right? If you just maintain clarity and focus and calm your nerves, everything will be okay. It's when you thrash, you panic, you get air hungry, that plays on you, and that's when people have a hard time, I think, when it comes to water-related activities.
Well, yeah, that's why I immediately went to, when you said, oh, you made it through everything, I immediately was like, oh, yeah, you played water polo. Because what is it that trips people up? Okay, you're going to be tired. That can trip some people up. You're going to be cold. They don't want to be cold anymore, so they quit. Like those two things. Hey, running and swimming pretty much, running pretty much like you're going to get put on the grind there, and you're going to your times are going to drop, and you're going to be. There's not too many people that get dropped for running. It happens for sure. Yeah. There's not too many people that get dropped for obstacle course. Water though, that's the separator. Right? Yeah. So if you're comfortable in the water going to buds, man, you have a huge leg up. Because all those little things you just rattled off as if it's no big deal, like don't panic, don't get air hungry. Like that's real easy when you're a water polo player. But for these dudes from Iowa that didn't grow up in the water, unless they grew up on a lake somewhere. I mean, there were some guys in my class. There was one guy in particular that was from Iowa, and he was a wrestler, and he was strong, and he was fast, and he was in incredible shape. And the dude sank, and he just panicked in the water every single time, and he quit. Yeah, so I think that's a big separator.
But I have so much respect for the folks who didn't have that kind of background of being so comfortable with the water. I don't want to say his name because he's still active, and he's over at Dam Neck, but let's say just his first name. My buddy Tyler, who I went through, he was like my sister division in boot camp. Mm-hmm. And I have so much respect for Tyler for just the way he carries himself and how he's just a very hard man. But he showed up to boot camp and didn't know how to do the side stroke.
That's insane.
And he learned in the locker room before the PST. And this guy is like one of the most squared away and prepared guys ever. And to this day, I give him I'm like, how did you show up and not know how to do the side stroke? But just from sheer willpower, he made it through, and like performed very well. We were swim buddies, dive buddies, so he performed very, very well. So I just chuckle, and so I have a lot of respect for people who are not comfortable, but through sheer willpower, will get knocked out. That 50-meter swim. Mm-hmm. If you've played water polo or swim, that's not a big deal to do 50-meter underwater swim. It gets uncomfortable, sure, but there are folks who go to the light, right? They drown, they go unconscious, mm-hmm. And I have so much respect for that level of determination. Like I would rather die than give up, and and it's just I don't know. I have to give props to that.
Was there any moments in buds where you were like, man, I don't know if this is for me, or did that not even cross your mind?
So I want to be clear. I was not a stellar performer, but I was middle of the pack, runner, swimmer, everything, with the longs, the boats. There's a standard to Hell Week. It's not just don't quit. You need to perform to a standard. And for me, I just wanted to make it clear I was giving my heart in everything I did, so that I cared more about what my boat crew thought than my instructors. There was one instructor who I still remember, Instructor Megan. I think just had it out for me. But, just a skinny kid from Los Angeles. And I cared I just wanted to put all I was